The quiet beeping of the equipment was the only sound in the room as Dr. Han stared at her screen. She rubbed her tired eyes, wondering if she was seeing things. The deep space monitoring station outside Seoul had picked up something strange, a signal coming from far beyond Pluto's orbit. At first, she thought it was just space noise, the kind of random emissions they filtered out every day. But this was different. "Can you run that analysis again?" she asked her assistant Lee, who nodded and tapped at his keyboard. The computers hummed as they processed the signal once more. Dr. Han sipped her cold coffee, her eyes never leaving the monitor. After 20 years studying possible alien languages, she had never seen anything this clear. The translation matrix finished its work, and a single word appeared on screen. Run. Dr. Han felt a chill run down her spine. She reached for her phone, with shaking fingers, and called the director. 3 days later, she stood before the International Space Coalition, her presentation ready. The room was filled with scientists, military officials, and the 7 alien representatives who had arrived on Earth 6 months ago. The aliens, members of the Galactic Council, sat at the back, their translators whispering to them as Dr. Han spoke. "The signal came from just beyond our solar system," she explained, pointing to her charts. "We've analyzed it thoroughly. It contains a clear warning. Run. Given its origin and structure, we believe—" A strange clicking sound interrupted her. One of the aliens, Tae, their chief diplomat, was making what she had learned was their version of laughter. "Is something funny?" asked General Park, the head of Earth's Defense Committee. Tae stood, his greenish skin catching the light. "Forgive me, but your human tendency toward fear is quite amusing. This signal you've detected is almost certainly a fragment of standard communication protocols. Many primitive species misinterpret them as threats." Dr. Han felt her face grow hot. "With respect, we've run every known test." "Yes, yes," Tae waved a 4-fingered hand. "Your tests are admirable for your technological level, but trust me, if there were any danger approaching your charming little world, we would know of it. The Galactic Council has monitored this sector for thousands of years." The room grew tense. One of the human diplomats cleared his throat. "We appreciate the Council's experience, but surely this signal warrants investigation." Another alien, Min, rose. "Perhaps what would reassure our human friends would be if we sent a small scouting vessel to check the signal's origin. Would that satisfy your concerns?" The meeting ended with that compromise, but Dr. Han wasn't satisfied. As everyone filed out, she noticed Tae and another alien named Ju whispering together, their translator devices turned off. Back at her lab, Dr. Han couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She pulled up the stellar communication, logs, the records of transmissions between the alien ships orbiting Earth and their homeworlds. The Council had provided these as a gesture of transparency, but something caught her eye. "Lee, look at this." She pointed to a pattern in the data. "Every time we detect unusual activity from beyond the solar system, there's a spike in communications between the Council ships. But they never mention it to us." Lee leaned closer. "Maybe they're just discussing it among themselves. Then why tell us nothing's wrong?" Dr. Han pulled up more data. "And look here, 3 weeks ago, they repositioned their ships to face outward from Earth toward the edge of the solar system. Why do that if there's no threat?" For the next 2 weeks, Dr. Han worked late into the night, mapping signals and ship movements. The pattern became clearer. The Council was watching something approach, something they weren't telling humans about. She brought her findings to Director Song, who looked troubled. "If you're right, why would they hide this from us?" "I don't know," Dr. Han admitted, "but I think we need to prepare just in case." Director Song nodded slowly. "I'll speak to the Defense Committee. Keep this quiet for now." That night, as Dr. Han was leaving her lab, she found Tae waiting by her car. She froze, clutching her bag tighter. "You're very persistent, Dr. Han," he said softly. "Most species trust us without question." "Should we?" she asked. Tae looked up at the night sky. "The universe is complicated. Not all knowledge is helpful." "Warning about danger seems pretty helpful to me," Dr. Han said. Tae's eyes, all 3 of them, blinked slowly. "Sometimes running only makes the predator chase faster." He turned to leave, then paused. Your species is young. Young species often believe they can outrun anything. After he left, Dr. Han sat in her car for a long time staring at the stars. Something was coming, and the Council knew what it was. But instead of helping Earth prepare, they were dismissing human concerns, acting like nothing was wrong. She started her car, determination setting in. If the aliens wouldn't help, humans would have to prepare on their own. She had no idea what was coming, but she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to just sit around and wait for it. She drove home through the quiet streets. A shooting star blazed across the sky. But Dr. Han knew better. That was no star. Something had entered Earth's solar system and time was running out. Dr. Han was staring out her apartment window when the sky changed. It started as a slight darkening, like clouds gathering for a storm. But these weren't clouds. The morning news had been filled with reports of atmospheric disturbances, but she knew better. For 3 months she had been warning anyone who would listen that something was coming. Few believed her. Now, as massive shadows fell across Seoul, everyone believed. They're here, she whispered, watching as the first of the ships became visible. Through the haze, enormous didn't begin to describe them. Each one looked like a floating city, dark and angular with strange lights pulsing along their hulls. Her phone rang. It was Director Song. Are you seeing this? He asked, his voice tight. Yes. They're not Council ships, are they? No. The Council is claiming they have no idea who these visitors are, but their body language tells a different story. They're scared, Han. I've never seen them scared before. Within hours, the world's major cities were covered by the shadows of these massive vessels. Unlike the Council ships, which had stayed in high orbit when they first arrived, these new visitors hovered low, their presence impossible to ignore. Global communications went wild. Some religious groups celebrated, thinking this was some divine intervention. Military forces worldwide went on high alert, and through it all, the Council representatives who had been living among humans for the past year suddenly became very hard to find. Dr. Han was called to an emergency meeting at the Coalition headquarters. The building was chaos, with officials rushing in every direction. In the main conference room, she found General Park arguing with Tae, the Council's chief diplomat. You know exactly who they are, Park shouted, his face red with anger. Stop lying to us. Tae's usually composed demeanor had cracked. His 3 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of stress Dr. Han had learned to recognize. We are preparing to return to our ships, Tae said. We recommend you do what you can to make peace with these visitors. You're running away. Dr. Han couldn't believe it. After all your talk about Galactic Brotherhood, another council member, a female named Sun, was gathering documents. It's standard protocol when the Void Walkers appear. There's nothing to be done. The Void Walkers? General Park grabbed Sun's arm. Who are they? Sun pulled away. Please, we must leave now. As the council members hurried toward the exit, Dr. Han blocked their path. You owe us an explanation. Those things are here because of us, aren't they? Because of that warning signal I found. The council members exchanged looks. Finally, one of them, Day, the youngest of their delegation, stepped forward. Let them go, he said to the others. I'll catch up. The rest hurried out. Once they were gone, Day's shoulders slumped. The Void Walkers are harvesters, he said quietly. They travel the galaxy looking for developing worlds with rich resources. Harvesters? Director Song asked. You mean they're here to take our resources? Day's expression was grim. Everything, resources, technology, biological samples, they strip planets bare. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Why didn't you warn us? Dr. Han demanded. We could have prepared or evacuated or... To where? Day asked. There's nowhere in your solar system they wouldn't find you, and we couldn't offer. Sanctuary. That would make us targets too. General Park slammed his fist on the table. So you just let this happen? You've been living among us, pretending to be our friends. Day's skin paled to a sickly yellow. It wasn't my decision. The Council... They've been tracking the Void Walkers for decades. They were heading toward the Centauri systems, worlds far more advanced than yours, with technologies the Council needs. We couldn't let that happen. Dr. Han felt sick. So you redirected them here? You used us as bait? Not me personally, Day said weakly. But yes, the Council placed certain beacons in your system. The warning you received was from another species who discovered what we had done. We tried to discourage you from investigating. But outside, the shadows of the ships grew darker as more arrived. On the conference room screens, news channels showed panicked crowds in cities worldwide. How do we fight them? General Park asked. Day laughed bitterly. You don't. No one does. The Voidwalkers have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than Earth's. Then why are you telling us this? Director Song asked. If there's no hope? Day looked ashamed. Because unlike my colleagues, I believe you deserve to know the truth. And because there's something unusual about your species. Something I've never seen before. What's that? Dr. Han asked. You don't give up, Day said simply. Most species, when faced with impossible odds, accept their fate. Humans don't seem to understand when they're beaten. An aide rushed into the room. General, the Council ships are leaving orbit, all of them. They crowded around the windows. High above, barely visible against the morning sky, the sleek shapes of the Council vessels were accelerating away from Earth, abandoning them to their fate. I should go, Day said quietly. Will you fight with us? Dr. Han asked. You know them better than we do. Day hesitated, clearly torn. I don't know how to fight. None of us do. We've survived by avoiding conflict, not engaging in it. General Park was already on his phone, barking orders. Around the world, military forces were mobilizing for all the good it would do against visitors who could cross galaxies. Tell me one thing, Dr. Han said to Day. Do these Voidwalkers have any weaknesses, anything at all? Day thought for a moment. They're methodical, predictable. They follow the same patterns every time. And they've never encountered humans before. With that small cold comfort, Day left to join his fleeing people. Outside, the first of the Voidwalker ships was descending toward the city center. Humanity's darkest hour had begun, but as Dr. Han watched her colleagues immediately begin planning a resistance, she understood what Day meant. Humans didn't know how to give up. Maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The sky turned blood red. As the Voidwalker ships descended, their massive shadows crawled across cities worldwide like dark hands reaching for prey. But instead of panic, something unexpected happened. Humanity stood its ground. In Seoul, Dr. Han watched from the emergency command center as the evacuation proceeded with surprising order. Families helped elderly neighbors, strangers shared vehicles. Children were passed hand to hand above a flooding river when a bridge collapsed. The chaos that the Voidwalkers expected, that had always happened on other worlds, simply didn't materialize. They're jamming our communications, reported Lee, typing furiously at his console. Military channels are going dark one by one. General Kim, who had taken command of Earth's unified defense forces, nodded grimly. Switch to the backup systems. Low-tech, just like we planned. Within minutes, runners were dispatched with handwritten orders. Ham radio operators, many elderly hobbyists who hadn't used their equipment in years, became the backbone of Earth's communications. The Voidwalkers had expected to cripple humanity with their technology. Instead, humans simply worked around it. The first attack came at dawn the next day. Massive energy beams struck military bases around the world simultaneously. The Voidwalkers clearly expected this show of force to trigger immediate surrender. They were wrong. Hold positions, General Kim ordered over the static-filled radio. Let them think they've won. The Voidwalkers sent landing parties to major cities, tall, gray-skinned beings with too many joints in their limbs. They moved with mechanical precision, setting up strange pylons at strategic locations. Dr. Han, watching from a hidden observation post, realized they were following a script, a playbook that had worked countless times before. They expect us to be paralyzed with fear, she told General Kim. Every species they've encountered before probably was. Then let's show them something new, Kim replied. The resistance began not with a bang, but with thousands of small actions. A Voidwalker patrol found their vehicles sabotaged. Communication pylons mysteriously malfunctioned. Supply depots were raided in the night. No direct confrontations, just constant harassment. In New York, a Voidwalker command post was flooded when someone opened a water main. In Mumbai, their sensors were blinded by thousands of mirrors reflecting the sun. In Cairo, they were led into narrow alleys where their size worked against them. Dr. Han worked tirelessly with a team of physicists to understand the invaders' technology. They captured damaged equipment and reverse-engineered what they could. 2 weeks into the occupation, she made a breakthrough. They use quantum entanglement for communications, she explained to General Kim, pointing to her findings. That's why our conventional jamming doesn't work. Their particles are linked across vast distances. They can communicate instantaneously without any signal that we can block. Can we listen in? Kim asked. Better, Dr. Han smiled for the first time in weeks. We might be able to feed them false information. As the resistance grew, the Voidwalkers became increasingly confused. Their tactics, refined over countless conquests, weren't working. They increased the brutality of their attacks, leveling entire neighborhoods as warnings. But instead of cowering, the survivors simply regrouped and continued fighting. What puzzled the invaders most was watching humans risk their lives for strangers. When a hospital was threatened in Berlin, civilians formed a human chain to evacuate patients. In Rio, people used their own bodies to shield children during an attack. In Tokyo, an elderly man walked directly into danger to rescue a child he'd never met. 1 month into the invasion, Dr. Han captured footage of Voidwalker commanders analyzing human behavior. Their confusion was evident even across species. They're trying to understand why we don't behave as expected, she told the resistance leaders. Every other species they've encountered must have followed predictable patterns of self-preservation. But we keep putting others before ourselves. It doesn't make sense to them. General Kim nodded. Good. Confusion leads to mistakes. The breakthrough came when Dr. Han's team finally cracked the quantum communication system. They couldn't read all messages, but they could intercept deployment orders. Suddenly, the resistance knew where the Voidwalkers would strike before they arrived. There's something else, Dr. Han told Kim late one night. Their system runs on predictive algorithms. They analyze behavior patterns and calculate responses, but human behavior keeps defying their models. You mean they can't predict what we'll do next? Exactly. And it's causing cascading errors in their system. They're having to manually override their own tactical computers. 3 months into what should have been a simple harvest, the Voidwalkers faced something unprecedented. They were losing. Not through overwhelming force, but through thousands of small defeats. Their precise, methodical approach couldn't adapt to human unpredictability. In a daring raid on a Voidwalker command ship, General Kim's forces captured critical data. Dr. Han spent days analyzing it, barely sleeping. They're using central processing, she finally announced. All their ships, all their forces, they're connected to a single command intelligence. It's their strength, but also their weakness. Can we use that? Asked Kim. Dr. Han smiled, exhausted but determined. We can feed false data directly into their system, make them see threats that aren't there, hide our actual movements. A Trojan. Horse, said an older officer, and those who understood the reference nodded grimly. As Dr. Han's team worked on the infiltration program, something unexpected happened. A Voidwalker patrol was ambushed in the mountains outside Seoul. Standard procedure. Except this time one of the aliens was wounded but not killed. Instead of leaving their comrade behind, as they always had before, the patrol stopped to retrieve them. They're learning from us, Dr. Han realized with a chill. They're adapting. The race was on. If the Voidwalkers could adapt to human unpredictability before Dr. Han's team could infiltrate their network, the advantage would swing back to the invaders. Working day and night, Dr. Han finally completed the infiltration program. It would give them one chance, one opportunity to feed catastrophically false information into the Voidwalker command system. We'll only get one shot at this, she told General Kim. Once they detect the intrusion, they'll close the loophole. Forever. Kim nodded, looking at the tired but determined faces around him. Then we make it count. For Earth. The next phase of the resistance would be all or nothing. Humanity had surprised the Voidwalkers with their refusal to surrender, with their willingness to sacrifice for others, with their adaptability and courage. Now they would show these invaders something else: human ingenuity. As dawn broke over the mountains, Dr. Han looked at her computer screen and took a deep breath. The future of Earth depended on what happened next. Dr. Han was working late in the underground lab when the alarm sounded. After months of Voidwalker attacks, everyone knew the drill: grab essential equipment, move to the inner chambers, prepare for impact. But this alarm pattern was different. "Unknown ship entering atmosphere," announced the automated system. "Not matching Voidwalker signatures." General Kim's voice crackled over the emergency channel. "All personnel, battle stations, this could be reinforcements for the enemy." Dr. Han rushed to the command center, weaving through narrow tunnels carved into the mountainside. The Resistance headquarters had moved underground after the third week of fighting, using old mining tunnels expanded in round-the-clock digging operations. The main screen showed a small vessel, sleek and silver, nothing like the angular black ships of the Voidwalkers. It was trailing smoke, its hull scorched in several places. "It's a council ship," Dr. Han said, recognizing the design. "But damaged." General Kim's expression hardened. "The cowards who abandoned us, shoot it down." "Wait." Dr. Han grabbed his arm. "Let's see what they want first. Could be valuable intelligence." After a tense debate, they allowed the ship to land under heavy guard. When the hatch opened, 6 council members emerged slowly, hands raised to show they were unarmed. At their lead was a tall, blue-skinned alien Dr. Han recognized immediately. "Park," she said, "the engineering specialist." Park nodded, his large eyes blinking in the harsh spotlights. "We come to help, if you'll have us." "Help?" General Kim laughed bitterly. "Your people used us as bait and ran when the trap was sprung." "Not." "All of us agreed with that decision," Park said quietly. "My crew and I argued against it. We were overruled." An hour later, they sat in the conference room, the council members looking uncomfortable under the suspicious glares of the human officers. "Why come back now?" Dr. Han asked. "It's been 4 months of fighting." Park's fingers tapped nervously on the table. "We've been watching from a distance. Every council prediction said you would fall within days. When you didn't, we continued, observing what we've seen." "What?" pressed General Kim. "Is impossible," finished another council member, a female named Jin. "No species has ever lasted this long against the Voidwalkers, not even the most advanced council races." Park nodded. "We came to understand why and to offer our help." General Kim leaned back, skeptical. "What's in it for you?" "If you drive." "The Voidwalkers back," Park said. "It changes everything. The Council has lived in fear of them for millennia. We redirect them to developing worlds, sacrifice the few to save the many. It's shameful, but we saw no alternative." Dr. Han studied their expressions. Council members were difficult to read, but she'd spent enough time with them to recognize genuine emotion. "You really believe we have a chance, don't you?" "More than a chance," Park said. "We've analyzed your tactics, your adaptability. There's something fundamentally different about humans." At Dr. Han's request, Park's team shared their technology and knowledge about the Voidwalkers. Within days, the Resistance had upgraded their weapons and communications. But the real breakthrough came when Park analyzed human historical records. "I don't understand," he said, reviewing footage of Earth's past conflicts. "Your people fought each other constantly throughout your history." "Not our proudest trait," admitted Dr. Han. "No, you don't understand," Park insisted. "This is unprecedented. Most sentient species evolve in stable environments. Threats are rare. Technology develops slowly, peacefully. Earth was never peaceful," General Kim said. "We evolved surrounded by predators, natural disasters, changing climates." Park's eyes widened. "Exactly. Your entire evolutionary history is one crisis after another. While council races were developing in tranquil, unchanging environments, your ancestors were facing constant threats." Dr. Han began to understand. "So what you're saying is, humans are crisis specialists," Park said excitedly. "You've been preparing to face the Voidwalkers for your entire evolutionary history without even knowing it." Jin, the female council member, joined the conversation. "We've been studying your neurophysiology. Most sentient species have a simple danger response. They freeze. It's a survival mechanism for avoiding predator attention. Humans don't freeze, Dr. Han said. We have what we call the fight-or-flight response. Yes, Park exclaimed. This is unique in our experience. When threatened, you either confront the danger or strategically retreat, both active responses. You never simply accept your fate. The implications were enormous. What the Council had seen as primitive, humanity's history of conflict, had actually prepared Earth for this moment. While other species paralyzed when facing overwhelming threats, humans got creative. Over the next weeks, Park's team helped integrate their technology with Earth's defenses. They were particularly fascinated by human military tactics. You use something called guerrilla warfare? Park asked, studying historical records. General Kim nodded. When outgunned, you don't fight directly. You hit and run, use the environment, exhaust your enemy. Brilliant, whispered Park. The Void Walkers have no concept of this. They've only encountered frontal resistance before, which they easily crush. As their understanding grew, so did Park's respect for humanity. One evening he found Dr. Han working late in the lab. There's something else unique about humans, he said, sitting beside her. Something we noticed immediately but didn't understand until now. What's that? She asked. Your social structures, Park explained. Most species form close bonds only, with genetic relatives. But humans, he gestured at the bustling underground base, you form deep connections with complete strangers. You risk your lives for people you've never met. Dr. Han hadn't thought about it that way. I suppose we do. It's extraordinary, Park insisted. You form instant tribes based on shared goals rather than shared genetics. The Council races take generations to form new social bonds. But humans? You do it in days. It's as if your entire species evolved, not just to survive crises, but to thrive in them. The conversation was interrupted by an alarm. A Void Walker patrol had been detected nearby. As everyone rushed to their stations, Dr. Han noticed something. Park and his crew moved just as quickly, seamlessly integrated into the human response. In just weeks, these aliens who had once abandoned Earth had become part of humanity's defense. It was exactly what Park had described. Humans forming instant tribes with anyone who shared their goals, even former enemies. Later, watching Park work alongside human engineers to modify their weapon systems, Dr. Han felt a surge of hope. The Void Walkers might have technologies built over millennia of conquest, but they had never encountered a species like humans before. Creatures who had evolved through constant crisis, who instinctively fought back rather than freezing, who could form cooperative bonds with anyone. For the first time since the massive black ships appeared in Earth's skies, Dr. Han began to believe that humanity might not just survive, but win. They should have picked an easier target, she murmured, watching the preparations for their counterattack. They should have run. The day of the final attack dawned with an eerie quiet. 6 months of brutal conflict had transformed Earth's cities into battlegrounds, forests into fortresses, and ordinary people into warriors. Dr. Han stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing positions of both human forces and Void Walker ships. Beside her stood Park, the Council engineer who had become humanity's unlikely ally. Are we ready? General Kim asked, his voice rough from too little sleep. Dr. Han nodded, patting the small device connected to their main computer system. The quantum interceptor is operational. Once they launch their attack, we'll have approximately 3 minutes to upload the false tactical data before their security protocols detect us. This was humanity's gamble. Everything hinged on their ability to confuse the Void Walkers. Hive consciousness just long enough to launch a coordinated counterattack. For creatures that relied on perfect information and predictability, chaos would be their undoing. All units report ready, said Lee, now a battle-hardened communications officer despite his young age. Resistance cells worldwide are in position. General, Kim took a deep breath. Then let's end this. Send the signal. The plan was audacious, perhaps even foolish. After months of avoiding direct confrontation, human forces worldwide would suddenly present themselves as easy targets, baiting the Void Walkers into committing their forces to what they would see as a final decisive battle. Reports began flooding in. Void Walker ships were mobilizing just as predicted. deploying their ground forces toward the apparent human strongholds. On the main screen, red dots representing enemy units converged on human positions. "They're taking the bait," whispered Park. "Just as you said they would." Dr. Han's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Quantum channel accessed. Beginning data." Insertion now. This was the moment everything hinged on, feeding false information directly into the Voidwalkers' command network. If they succeeded, the invaders would see threats where none existed and miss the real attack brewing right under their sensors. Uploading false tactical dataset. "Now," Dr. Han announced. For 30 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, on the monitors, the red dots representing Voidwalker forces began to move erratically. Some abruptly changed direction. Others stopped altogether. "It's working," Lee shouted. Park stared at the screens in amazement. "They're seeing phantom armies, ghost attacks. Their entire tactical grid is compromised." General Kim wasted no time. "All units execute Phase 2. Across the globe, hidden human forces emerged, not where the Voidwalkers expected, but at their now exposed flanks. The Resistance had spent months mapping the invaders' blind spots, identifying the weaknesses in their formations. Now they struck with everything they had. In Seoul, fighters emerged from underground tunnels directly beneath Voidwalker command posts. In the Amazon, Resistance fighters used the dense jungle to ambush confused enemy patrols. In the ruins of London, modified Council weapons fired from positions the Voidwalkers' compromised sensors couldn't detect. "They're attempting to reboot their network," Dr. Han reported, eyes fixed on her monitor. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they purge our infiltration." "It's enough," General Kim said confidently. "Look." On the screens, the tide was visibly turning. For the first time, Voidwalker units were in full retreat. Their carefully coordinated attacks had descended into disarray. Without reliable tactical information, their superior firepower was being negated by human adaptability. "Their ships are powering up engines," Park reported, monitoring from his station. "They're preparing to leave orbit." A cheer went up around the command center, but Dr. Han remained focused. "Wait," she said. "They're transmitting something." "A massive data burst." Park rushed to her side. "Let me see." His expression grew grave. "It's a warning. They're sending an emergency message to all Voidwalker fleets." Dr. Han managed to decode fragments of the transmission. "Unprecedented resistance. Tactical networks compromised. Species possesses unknown biological adaptation to crisis. Recommend immediate withdrawal and quarantine of sector." "They're running away," Lee said disbelievingly. "Not just running," Park replied, his voice filled with wonder. "They're warning others to stay away from Earth. This has never happened before." Outside, the rumble of Voidwalker engines grew to a deafening roar as their massive ships broke from orbit. Trails of fire cut across the sky as humanity watched their tormentors flee. In the days that followed, celebrations broke out across the planet. Cities lay in ruins. Millions had been lost, but Earth had done the impossible, driven back an enemy that had never known defeat. 2 weeks after the Voidwalkers' retreat, a delegation from the Galactic Council arrived. Unlike the previous representatives, who had treated humans with thinly veiled contempt, these council members approached with obvious respect, even caution. In a ceremony broadcast worldwide, the Council's High Speaker formally apologized for their betrayal and offered reparations. "In 30,000 years of Council history," the Speaker said, "we have never witnessed what humanity has accomplished. You have taught us that there is another way to face threats besides avoidance or surrender." Dr. Han, seated beside General Kim in the front row, listened with mixed emotions. The victory had come at terrible cost. Later, at a smaller gathering, Park approached her. "The Council is in turmoil," he confided. "Everything they believed about survival in the galaxy has been challenged. Many are studying human history now, trying to understand." "What have they learned?" Dr. Han asked. "That crisis doesn't have to be feared," Park said simply. "You humans don't just survive hardship, you're transformed by it, made stronger. The Council races have spent millennia avoiding challenges, and in doing so we've stagnated. General Kim joined them, looking out the window at the reconstruction already beginning in the city below. What happens now? Will the Voidwalkers return? Park shook his head. I don't believe so. Their messages were quite clear. Earth is to be avoided at all costs. In their own words, this species responds to threats not with fear but with innovation. They protect strangers as if they were kin. They become more dangerous when cornered. The risk of harvesting this world outweighs any possible resource gain. Dr. Han smiled slightly. So they're afraid of us now. With good reason, Park replied. The galaxy has countless species that evolved to hide from predators. Until now, we've never encountered one that evolved to fight back. The Voidwalkers have no strategy for this. As rebuilding began across Earth, the story spread throughout the galaxies. The tale of a small blue planet whose inhabitants refused to accept extinction. A species so shaped by crisis that when faced with an overwhelming enemy, they didn't freeze or flee or submit. Instead, they fought, they adapted, they overcame. On trading outposts and space stations throughout the galaxy, travelers shared the new wisdom. If you threaten Earth, be prepared for consequences. These humans, shaped by millions of years of surviving one crisis after another, are unlike anything the stars have seen before. They don't understand when they're beaten. They unite in the face of danger. They turn enemies into allies. And when cornered, they don't cower. They innovate. As Dr. Han watched the stars one night, standing amid the ruins of her old laboratory, she thought about everything humanity had endured and overcome. The warning that had started it all. Runnis had been meant for the Voidwalkers, not for Earth, because when it comes to humanity, the galaxy was learning a simple truth. They should have run,